This is Six Tackles with Gus, with Matthew Thompson and Gus Gould.
Hello there, welcome to this week's episode of Six Tackles with Gus, the penultimate regular season round of 2023. On the show today, Rabbit stewed, internal turmoil at Souths claims a very big scalp. Get your skateboards out. The Knights are flying. How far can they go? Josh Schuster dropped. Is his career at a crossroads? We've got some great Ask Gus questions and we'll preview round 26. Lovely and warm at the moment. Gus, how are you doing?
Matthew, yes. August, you can feel that first little puff of warm breeze on the cheek, and you know what that is, don't you? It's semi-final time.
Yes.
The best time of the year. You're walking along the street one day in August and you just feel it. A little puff of warm breeze on the cheek. And you go, yeah, finals are around the corner.
Lovely on the golf course yesterday.
Best time of the year. Well, that's another pleasure taken away from me.
What?
Golf. It's another pleasure taken away from me.
You still haven't played, eh?
I can't complain.
Yeah.
Life's okay.
Yes, Gus is feeling the finals vibes. Gee, we've got some content to get through today, but we start with our usual segment.
Yes! No.
Hey.
No.
That's the rule.
No. Dear.
Question 1. BBQs make great farewell gifts.
No.
Why? Why?
I can't believe that.
I thought it was funny they wheeled it out on the field. That's what I thought was funny.
I hope he's happy with it. But even if you were going to give him a barbecue, why would you do it in front of the crowd?
Why would you wheel it out on the field?
On game day. I can't get my head around it. I hope he's happy with it. I hope he ordered it. I hope they gave him what he wanted.
But Benji's got a big smile on his face.
What do you want
there's
as a
your
gift?
Barbie.
Luke, what do you want as a gift? I'll have a barbecue. I'll have a Weber.
You could have got him like a nice built-in Barbie, not a freestanding one with a gas bottle.
Yeah.
Hey, I hope they got him a subscription, like a meat pack or meat tray to go with it.
Didn't even come with a cookbook or anything. I can't.
Oh, that's so
I can't
West
believe
Tigers.
that. I can't believe that.
He'll get something else, won't he, at the presentation?
Well, I suppose he
Maybe
will now.
maybe they'll give him some utensils.
I suppose he will now.
Oh, Brooksy, thanks for coming. There's your Barbie. Bit different. So I read today John Farnham's released a statement. First time he's spoken publicly after he had like a lot of surgery for mouth cancer. It was looking pretty dire at one stage, but apparently he's still singing around the house. And it's been quite a road back. But my question to you, Phil Gould, is that NRL Grand Final Day entertainment should be covers of John Farnham songs.
Yeah, what a wonderful tribute that would be. Great news. He's had his ups and downs, poor old John, doesn't he? But he's been wonderful, wonderful Australian.
Some great songs we could trot it on Grand Final Day.
Absolutely. No, I think that would be good.
We should get an array of artists to sing John Farnham songs.
Grand Final Day, I'd just be happy with him and Jimmy Barnes, and that's it.
Yeah.
Throw the balloons up, let the pigeons go, and get on with the game. That's what they used to do at the Grand Final.
Pigeons?
Pigeons and balloons.
I don't think you're allowed to do that anymore.
Balloons.
The RSPCA.
Don't they?
And the Wires or whoever they
Doves.
are. Yeah, doves. You'll be catching them. They're worth a lot of money. Yes.
We used to do pigeon racing when we were kids. I told you about my pigeons days, haven't I?
Never.
Yeah, we had pigeons. Yeah, I have.
Have you?
I have told you about my pigeon days. We used to.
Oh, you've never told me about your pigeon days.
We were very young. We had
What?
pigeons.
Pet pigeons?
Pet pigeons.
Not
yeah.
racing pigeons?
No, they didn't. They weren't good enough to race. But pet pigeons.
How do you train pigeons to race? Do you know this? Because
Well,
the great Bill Laurie was a great pigeon racer.
They're homing birds, so they race home. So that's where they race to. You take them away, and they can find their way home
They can find that, really?
from anywhere. Yeah, they're quite brilliant.
Wow.
I'm sure I told you this story.
Never.
We had a pigeon coop out the back of my mate's place, Kenny Brown. We were both very young, and we took up pigeons. We used to go and collect Coke bottles. You used to get a 5-cent return on your Coke bottle.
Yeah.
We used to save them up. And you can go down the pet shop and buy a pigeon for 20 cents or something, 2 bob. And we go down and buy these pigeons, and we picked up a couple of strays, I suppose. We probably had about 30 pigeons, in the back of the thing there. And it was good because you keep them there for a month or so, and then what you could do, you could let them out, and they'd go out and they'd fly around. You'd see them fly around in flocks.
Yeah.
And then they'd come back down when you'd rattle the seed cage. They'd come back down and come back into the coop. We thought it was cool, we'd let the birds out, and they'd come back in. And we had all their food there, and we had, nice little apartment for him. Wasn't the flashiest of things. We just built it out of odds and ends in the backyard of Kenny's place.
Wow.
And we used to have pigeons.
So you just did it for a hobby?
We did it for a hobby. And then we sort of researched it a little bit, and we decided that we were going to try and breed pigeons of our own.
Uh-oh.
But we needed a male pigeon.
You needed a stallion.
A sire, yeah. So we sort of looked up in the paper, and this bloke at Blacktown was advertising this silver mealy. It's called a silver mealy. I'm sure it's a silver mealy pigeon. It's the top of the range pigeon.
So he's the reduced choice.
So he's like, it's like a $3 bird, so $3. So we've had to save up a lot of Coke bottles to go around and get the $3. And we've driven on our bikes from Wentworthville to Blacktown, which is a long way, in the stinking heat, to drive out there to go to this bloke's pigeon coop to buy this silver mealy bird. We want to buy this silver mealy.
Oh, you wanted to buy it?
I've got to buy it.
Not a service.
No, $3.
Right.
$3 to buy it. He was selling this silver mealy bird. And when we get out to his place, he's a professional. Like, his pigeon coop looks like the Hilton Hotel. And it just looks like a...
And these two kids on their bikes have turned up.
Yeah, these two kids have turned up on their bikes. And he obviously we didn't know what we were doing, So we give him the $3, and he's come out and he's explaining this bird, big, proud, strong-looking bird, And he said, now listen, he said, when you take this bird back, don't let it out of your cage, for at least 3 months. We said, well, why? He said, because if you let it out of the cage, he said, it will come back here to my cage. He said, not only that, it will take the other birds with it. I said, what do you mean? He said, once he's been in the cage for a while, he'll be the boss. Wherever he goes, they'll go. We said, really? He said, yeah. He said, don't let him out for 3 months. He said, because if you do, your birds will be coming back to my place. I said, I don't want your flea-ridden birds here in my joint. He said, I can just imagine what it looks like. We said, all right. So we took it back. We took this big silver mealy bird back to our place.
On your bike?
And we put him in his own little cage, and we left him there for 6 months. We weren't going to let him out, because we thought, he'd fly off. So we let him out. So anyway, the big day came where we were going to let the bird out, and then we were going to start the mating ritual and all that sort of thing. So we've let the birds out, and they've gone for a fly, and then we've pulled the big silver mealy out, and we've let him go. Well, up he goes in the air, and up they go, and he flies around, and then he joins the flock, and they do 1, 2, 3 laps, and then the silver mealy heads off straight to Blacktown. Our birds do 1 more lap and took off after it. And
that was it.
Lucky there was no mobile phones in those days. The bloke couldn't contact us, but I just imagine he had 30 of our pigeons rock up at his nice little facility.
6 months.
Yeah. So yeah, he was like the Pied Piper of pigeons. I hope I got those names right, but it's a long time ago. But he was like the
I hope
Pied
that
Piper.
bloke's still with us and listening to our podcast.
I've had some footballers over the years that I used to call silver mealies. they had quite an influence over the group.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they did something, they all did it.
There's some similarities between pigeons and footballers, eh?
Yeah. Willie Mason I used to call the silver mealy. Mark Guy was a silver mealy.
Oh, that's very funny. I've never heard that.
Haven't I told the story before?
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
He said, don't let him out for 3 months because he'll come back and he'll bring all your birds with him. So I don't want your birds in my pigeon coop. We said, good. We kept him in for 6 months.
So you had 30 birds.
He did 3 laps. He did 3 laps of Centenary Park.
Go on.
He took off. And the other birds just took off with him. Just went. We lost the whole lot in one go.
That's awful.
Never got him back. And that was the end of our pigeon days.
How old would you have been?
We're only riding bikes, probably 13, 14.
That's a wholesome upbringing, people.
Yeah.
Forget all your video games.
Yeah.
Go and breed pigeons.
Well, Kenny Brown. I played soccer and cricket with Kenny Brown. He was a good cricketer. And we played at Wenny Waratahs there down at Marylands where I used to live. He lived down the bottom of my street down around the corner. He can't live, Kenny. And we built a pigeon coop in the backyard. Yeah.
Very good.
Funny days.
That is funny. If there's any pigeon breeders out there, feel free to reach out for whatever reason.
I certainly wasn't in the Bill Lowry class.
No. He's a proper pigeon aficionado.
Our pigeons were a bit scratchy.
Josh Schuster will start next season in New South Wales Cup.
No. No, well, I can't imagine he or they will let that happen. He's been signed on a very significant contract to do a very significant job. My understanding was that he always wanted to play 5'8". He didn't want to play in the forwards. That there was some conjecture about his contract at Manly while Kieran Foran was still there. Then when Kieran Foran moved on, it was just assumed that he would be the number 6. Now they've signed Luke Brooks So I'd imagine Luke Brooks is there to play the last year or two with Cherry Evans, see how long he wants to play. And then Luke Brooks will eventually take over after him. I suppose that's the succession plan. They have got a couple of good young playmakers down there in the lower grades, but no, Schuster can't allow that to happen. He's got to fight his way back and get back in the top grade. That's what he's paid to do, and that's what they've bought him to do.
I suppose it comes down to an individual attitude, though, doesn't it? So that they couldn't have done any more to help him.
It always does, mate. As I say, self-motivation is the best form of motivation. The best form of discipline is self-discipline. You need self-starters. You need people that really want it. You need people that have got a passion for it, and they've got to love what they do. If they don't, well, then they're in the wrong game. It's not an easy game. It's a hard game. It's very hard for these kids. But he's been rewarded with a good contract and a big responsibility, and he's got all off-season to turn it around. He should be able to.
The Knights come in the comp.
No. I don't think so. They're going marvellously, though. Absolutely marvellously. Strong, powerful, fit, skillful. Newcastle teams have always been skillful. They've always known their football well. They've always been students of the game. And I keep coming back to this, and I said it on 100% footy the other night. The decision to move Kalen Ponga back to fullback has saved him and saved the team. What led to him being playing 5'8" earlier in the season is now done and dusted. It's gone. It was an experiment. It didn't work. And they've moved on. And it's certainly helped Kalen. And if it helps Kalen, it's helped the Knights. Mind you, they're going to beat a few sides who think they can win it. I think Panthers are over the line. I just can't see them being beaten, all things being equal, as long as they keep everybody on the field. Their defence is extraordinary, and I can't see anyone matching that at times. Broncos are getting better. They're still maturing, but they haven't been to this end of the season for a few years, so it's a new experience for them. It'll be exciting, but experience counts for a lot. And then you've got your Storm and then sort of your others, your Sharks and Raiders and those sort of teams. Newcastle are the new kid on the block. It'll be very exciting for them. Really looking forward to this Sunday's game up there at Newcastle.
Oh, yeah.
I think it'll be an absolute cracking game. And they've done really well. And it's great because, when I love when Newcastle are doing well. But Newcastle fans are such passionate people and so loyal. And
it's been sold out since last week.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And we need that. We need these teams being competitive. It's not good when your team's in the cellar and struggling. But the Newcastle fans stick by their troops. They turn up every week, rain, hail or shine.
So just further to that, should they beat Cronulla on Sunday, which isn't a formality, but the way they're playing, they're going to be hard to beat, particularly at home. They'll go to 33 points. Should Brisbane beat Canberra, which most people are anticipating, Newcastle will go to 5th, which means if they stay there, they'll host a final week 1.
Yeah.
5th versus 8th. So you'd be saying they'll get through there.
Well,
that gets them to week 2.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they're going terrifically. Going terrifically well. You don't win 7 in a row in this competition unless you're doing something right. And they've had a couple of good scalps the last few weeks.
My word.
They've got points in them. Kalen Ponga is in rare form, and everyone's responded to it. Their forwards are working hard. They look fit and strong. They're defending better. I think the confidence that's come out of their wins and their strength has got them defending better. So they're a chance in any game. I don't see a premiership because I just think the premiership winners are too good for everyone at the moment. But they can make a deep run. They can play preliminary finals. Yeah.
They finished with the Dragons too at Netstrata Jubilee. And my final question for yes, no, Gus, is it's been a bad week for the Bunnies.
Well, it's been a bad 8 or 10 weeks for the Bunnies. That's yeah.
So extraordinary developments this morning at South Sydney. Assistant coach Sam Burgess has departed the club for the final time, seemingly as the losing party in a power struggle with key players Latrell Mitchell and Cody Walker. The timing of the exit points to severe internal turmoil at the club. It's been reported that Burgess and fellow assistant John Morris raised with head coach Jason Dimitri their belief that a double standard existed in the treatment of the star duo and the rest of the squad. Rather than addressing the concerns, Burgess has left. I can tell you John Morris was at training this morning and will obviously continue. Now, the club has released a statement which is, in kindness, is basically spinning it to create a positive narrative. The South Sydney Rabbitohs have agreed with Sam Burgess today that he'll be released from his assistant coaching duties for the remainder of the season to allow him to concentrate on his forthcoming role with the Warrington Wolves and the impending birth of his child. Yes, he was to leave the club. However, to sever the relationship between Souths and one of the greatest figures in South Sydney history 2 weeks out from potentially a finals campaign is quite remarkable. Your reaction firstly, Gus?
Well, my reaction is just sad. You don't like to see any club going through this. And again, how much of it is to be believed and how much has been, sensationalised by the media? What has caused this situation at the moment? And anything we hear is obviously hearsay and conjecture. And but for this to happen at this stage, I mean, they've got the bye this week and then they've got a season-defining game against the Roosters in the last round to see if they play finals football. To suddenly part ways with the likes of Sam Burgess and John Morris at this time of year as a reaction.
John Morris is still there, by the way.
He's still there.
He's part of the training
he's
this
not
morning.
Leaving.
So he...
But I think he's leaving at the end of the year. He's leaving at the end of the year anyway. And so was Sam. They were leaving at the end of the year anyway. So why do they have to go now unless there's been some sort of issue there? Whatever it is that's been plaguing South Sydney, and there has obviously been something plaguing them internally for some time. I first raised the issue with their football and the standard of football that they were playing compared to where I thought they should be, and it's gone downhill from there. But they've won very few games out of their last 10, and they've now succumbed to a couple of good losses against like Sharks and Newcastle, who are finals bound, and for a team that was touted as being one of the premiership favourites, and many gave them a real chance as being the likely contender to Panthers, it's certainly been a fall from grace. And this is a team that over the last 6 years has been regular as a preliminary finalist. They made one grand final when Wayne Bennett was there, but they've kind of fallen at the second last hurdle on a number of occasions. They've been looking for that next level and have just been unable to find it. And this year, it just looked like it all got a little bit too hard for them, and the season has unravelled. Now, that's not to say that they can't win their last game and get into the finals, and then, because they've got the class in their team, make an impact. But it's now made infinitely more difficult because of the fact Latrell is suspended and won't be there for that last game. Roosters have found form and on a bit of a roll, and they won't let it slip if they get the chance. And South Sydney could miss the 8, which I think would be extraordinary. No one would have seen that coming at the start of the season, and even halfway through the season. When I said it was a chance, people wanted to ridicule that opinion, and which is fine. I don't care about that, but it's played out before our eyes, and now it's got pretty ugly this week, hasn't it? And I don't like to see clubs play through that. I don't like to see individuals go through that. I certainly don't like to see someone like Sam Burgess be dragged into that as made as some sort of either scapegoat or one of the reasons behind why things why else do they make this decision? It's a hard one, isn't it? But
well, it would appear
again, unless you're in there internally, you really don't know what's
that's
happening.
True. That is true, and we are speaking from a point of view of what we've read and also what we might have been told, but it would appear on the surface that it's almost been a him or us kind of situation. And let's not forget the esteem in which Sam Burgess is held at South Sydney. I mean, this is a bloke who is a legend, an absolute out-and-out legend of the club, who won the comp with them in 2014 in the most remarkable circumstances. He has left the club because there appears to be a feud within the coaching staff and senior players as to how certain members of that playing squad are being treated. It's a pretty sensational development to let someone of his calibre go. I mean, we're not talking about a run-of-the-mill assistant coach here. No.
And who's putting out the press release today? Who's put their
That's
name?
South saying that they've let Sam Burgess go to concentrate.
Who's put their name to it? There's only a media manager on this.
Oh, well, Blake Solly's quoted. They wish him all the best, etc., etc. That's all that's been said about the club. But I mean, look, that's what the club is going to say. I mean, clearly, they would have let him go 2 weeks ago when he signed with Warrington if that was the case. So this is spinning it.
That's a nothing press release. That doesn't convince you, does it?
No.
I don't think it convinces anyone. It's obviously something's happened there. And, it probably gives more... A situation like this probably gives more weight to what has been rumoured this week about the unrest and whether or not, people were being held to account. But again, unless you're in there internally, you don't see it. All I see is what we see on the weekends when they go out to play NRL football. And when they go out to NRL football, they're certainly not the team we expected. They're not the team we've seen before. And we've kind of predicted that they were going to do it tough, and they have. Now it's sort of unravelled to this point. As I say, they've got a fortnight with a bye to get ready for that Roosters game to resurrect their season and play top 8 football. They're quite capable of doing that. There's no doubt they've got talent. But it would be interesting to see how they respond to this and what they can do in a fortnight's time.
You've coached great players at club and representative level throughout your career, and certainly one of the elements of being a successful coach would be to manage personalities. But there must be an immense danger in setting standards for some and not others. And I'm talking in general terms here. How have you been able to manage that? For instance, you coached Andrew Johns at Origin level, and you didn't treat him with kid gloves. That was very public.
Yeah, look, you're talking different eras, and you get into very dangerous ground about what I might have done, 20 years ago or 30 years ago in managing footballers, or what clubs did, or how they handled them, or how they handled personalities. And football back then was a different planet to this one. On the field, you can see the embryo in today's game, but off the field, players today are just different. These are full-time professionals on very, very big money, looking after very lucrative careers there is a different mindset with today's players, and there is a different way of managing today's players around how you can and can't speak to them, or what you do and don't expect, or what they do and don't expect, or how judgmental they can be, both on the organisation, on the coaching, and what have you. It's a different. It's just different. It really is, and that's, So if you haven't been involved in the game that long, you probably wouldn't know the difference. You've only grown up with what they're seeing today, but it's a different planet today to what it was 20 years ago.
Well, can I take a more contemporary example? What about the way Craig Bellamy has achieved sustained success with Melbourne, with Smith, Slater, Cronk, Inglis, etc., and then you compare him to the tradesmen that he's also assembled around them? Yeah. They galvanise like a remarkable unit, and the success of that club over a long period of time is the evidence of that.
Yeah, I think if you go to the Melbourne Storm and look at the way they recruit, particularly young talent, the way they develop it, and they bring them through the system, and the people that they do, they're pretty stringent on character and work ethic and team-mindedness, team-based responsibilities. And they don't tolerate anything outside that. Their parameters are pretty strong. You don't go to Melbourne Storm unless you're willing to buy into that culture, and you're willing to buy into the team ethos and the work ethic and everything else. I mean, they put people out on construction sites. If they fail that test, they don't get a boot. They don't come into the locker room. That's pretty simplified how they do it, but they are pretty stringent on that. And most clubs do have that type of, trying to build up a culture within their organisation. And it does get dangerous if you have to treat individuals differently. If you, and there's no doubt that in my time I did treat individuals differently, but always team-minded and always club-minded. Club first, team second, individual third. We've got to coach the individual to be part of the team to make the club what we want it to look like. Mm-hmm. All right? But we start with club first, team second, individual third. What's in the best long-term interest of the club? What's in the best interest of the team? And we coach the individual into that. But to get to where you want to be as a club and as a team, you have to coach the individual first. That's who you're coaching. And they have to buy into a team ethos and a club culture. And you kind of get good at weeding out the ones that could erode that, or that could sit outside that. Now, then you've got to base talent as against, talent to winning games as against whether or not they've got the personality or the characters to do that. But you would like to hope that they all buy in. And in most successful situations, they all do. And I'm not saying that there are people at South that don't, but and they just might be coming to the end of a few long years where they've been at the pointy end for a while, and they've probably just had a down season. Some of the you've got Parramatta, you've got Manly, you've got Roosters, you've got South, that are all going to miss the 8. And at the start of the year, they would have been in your top 8 contenders. So there's been something about this year with the off-season and time off for players. And, one of the things I want to talk about at length at some stage is the amount of time off that players have these days and their rights around time off and holidays and training schedules and all that, which I don't think adequately helps prepare certain players at certain stages of their career. They just, I'd love to sit and talk with Wayne Bennett about that because he's been in the game longer than any of us, and I think he would share similar views to myself, and certainly some of the senior coaches around, like your Ricky Stewarts and your Ivan Clearys and Craig Bellamy's and that, about how they manage all this time. But managing personalities is important, but the personality's got to understand he's got a club first, team first mentality, and that's essential if you're going to be successful. That's absolutely essential. You can't make rules for some and not rules for others. It's I had occasions back in the day where I would drop talented players because they'd done the wrong thing, and the team would vote them back in. I'd say to the team, you can vote them back in if you like, but my stance is this.
So you drop them and they would be recalled before the game, or they'd have a game in reserve, right?
Yeah. I'd say, this is my decision. He's dropped. You blokes can make another decision if you like, but I don't want to penalise you. I don't want to penalise the club. We've got a big game this weekend, and we need Bobby here to be playing, but he's done the wrong thing. He's done the wrong thing by the team. My decision is that he's out. And sometimes they vote, yes, he's out. We're happy with that. And sometimes they say, Coach, all right, we'll understand. We'll find another penalty and we'll put him back in. But that's a long time ago, mate. That's not. I don't necessarily purport that to be what you should be doing today. Hopefully, you never get to this situation. Hopefully, everyone is team-minded, club-minded, and is doing the work and putting themselves above the others.
I mean, look.
But players with profile today, social media, brand. I first heard someone talk about their brand 10 years ago. I nearly puked. My brand. What was more important was his brand.
What was
his brand?
I'm loath to go down this path, but is it part of Brand Latrell and Brand South for him to be chugging a beer on stage with a country music singer when the team's going like a busted?
Well, it's up for South to deal with that. It's up for South to deal with that. But it doesn't look good in the current climate, does it? In any way, shape or form. What players are doing in their private time, in a way, that's up to the players and whatever they're doing.
Well, it wasn't private. It was in front of a full stadium.
Yes, I know. I know. But,
would you be concerned
if they were winning and he had a blinder on the weekend and was man of the match? Do you think anyone would care about he had a beer at a concert?
Not at all.
No, not at all. So these winning. And you talk about the Craig Bellamy's in this world. Winning solves everything. Winning keeps everyone buying in. It's when things aren't going so well that you'll have those that are what we call below the line and above the line. Below the line thinking is pointing the finger and it's someone else's fault and it's not my fault, etc., etc. You need people above the line where are taking accountability for their actions and what they're contributing, and if there are weaknesses somewhere else, lending a hand to help and help that situation. But below the line thinking is selfish and self-centered and pointing the finger and blaming others or excuses. And that's what we try to discourage. It's part of attitude control. It's part of the mental training that we give people to have mental strength to deal with this game. This is a hard game. At the top level, it's a hard game. It's a hard game. And it's made harder by the fact that really good teams are really good.
Yeah.
They've built their culture and they've built their history on it. And
this is a really good team.
They're really strong.
This is a really good team.
It has been, yeah.
But it's interesting you talk about culture, and look, we probably move on.
And I'm not ragging on South.
I know
I'm
you're
just talking generally.
And I don't want to make out like you're running another club and you're trashing another organisation, but you are
not
here to give an opinion.
As I said, I'm sad that South Sydney are going through this. I played with South. Had a wonderful time at South Sydney. And I don't like to see clubs suffering like this. Now, maybe internally they've got it all under control. Maybe everyone in the media is wrong. Maybe the scuttle is off the mark and they're 100% right. It seems unlikely.
Well, the sight of Sam Burgess walking out of the joint
Yeah, it seems unlikely.
2 weeks before the final start doesn't indicate they've got it under control at all.
Well, that would seem like a drastic action. It's a very strong action if it was warranted. It's hard to know if it was warranted. We haven't heard from Sam or that side of the
Sam
story.
said he'll be releasing a statement later today, Wednesday. So
Yeah.
stand by
and
for
Sam,
that.
And Sam being a club man and the team first man will probably play the party line as well.
Yeah.
Because that's what great leaders do. They play the part. You don't give people up. I've never given anyone up in my life. Never given anyone up. I've allowed the media to say whatever they like about whatever situation and tell lies and manipulate it any way they like. I've never given anyone up, ever, to the truth. Sometimes you can't tell the truth. Sometimes you can't tell the truth. You can't justify your decision because you can't tell the truth. And that happens a lot. And if you're going to be a leader, you're going to make decisions that make a lot of people unhappy. It's going to affect people that you actually really care about. And you're not going to get to explain yourself. And that's part of being a leader. So you need to suck that up. But I've never given anyone up.
Yeah, just lastly on this too, I mean, you talk about culture. I can't think of two greater professionals that would drive culture better than Cam Murray and Damien Cook. And I would imagine just looking, and I don't know them very well, but they wouldn't want to be treated any differently to the rest of the squad, would they?
No. It's when you talk about that, there are team-based things that everyone has to do. And you buy into that culture, you buy into the team ethos, you buy into that bond between people because that's what's going to stand you up under pressure. These are the things that get pressure tested in this game of rugby league. It gets pressure tested on the field, it gets pressure tested off the field when your team is struggling. It gets pressure tested when you're successful. Who's taking credit for that? In a great organisation, no one cares who gets the credit. The media wants to attribute credit, all right? And that can fray relationships and it can get people a little bit of their nose out of joint if they're weak-minded people. But at the end of the day, when clubs have success, no one cares who gets the credit. If the club is strong, they're having success because no one cares who gets the success. They all work, they all contribute, everyone's role is respected, and everyone does their job. It's not about one person is responsible for it. They're not. They never are. That's the idea of building a club, a club culture and a club mentality. And the great clubs over the recent years, like your Melbourne Storms and your Roosters and your Panthers and those clubs, built a culture based on that. And you've only got to listen to your Cameron Smiths and Billy Slaters and these Cooper Cronks now when they talk about rugby. You can see it in them. You can see the way they talk about football and the way they talk about each other and the way they talk about the Melbourne Storm. And it's a wonderful thing. It's the same with the Roosters. It's the same with the Panthers. Look at the dynasty they're building out there. It's remarkable stuff. But it's all built on a togetherness and a work ethic and a team-based mentality. And it's what beats a lot of other teams because sometimes the other teams have got plenty of talent, but you'll beat them with culture. It's an old saying: culture beats talent every day of the week, and it will. In the end, culture will beat talent. So, it's not nice to see a club like South Sydney, one of our top clubs, going through this, but it's all a learning experience. It's all something that can galvanise them for the future. If next week's against the Roosters is their last game this year, they get a nice long off season to reflect on what's happened, on how they got into this situation and how they present themselves next year. And I'm sure they will. That's what leadership and management is all about. You don't always get it right. There are thunderbolts. There are things that come to you that come out of the blue but if you walk past things at times, they can fester and they can develop. And there's an old saying, if you walk past it, you accept it. Whatever's happened this year, someone's walked past it at some stage, and now it's led to this.
All right. Well, look forward to round 27. Maybe they'll come out breathing fire. Should they win, they'd probably make it.
Mate, they could easily. They could all sit around the campfire this week and hold hands and get themselves ready for one game because they've got the talent to do it, and they're most likely to do it. It won't be easy without Latrell, but they can actually do it. They can actually come out and beat the Roosters and play finals. Well, then they've been down this road plenty of times before. They could turn this around in a fortnight. They really could. And maybe these decisions are part of the galvanising process. We don't know who's in the right and who's the wrong here internally. All right? We can surmise, we can draw conclusions based on what we've read in the media, But internally, if it's really strong and they've done exactly what should have been done, all right, if they've done what most people would have expected to be in the best long-term interest of the club or in the best long-term interest of the team or in solving a situation that's presented itself, if most people in the club believe this is the right way to go, then it could galvanise them and they could run into a big month of football and do some special things. It can turn very, very quickly. But more likely, looking at the moment, the way they're playing and where they're now situated, and providing Roosters get through this game this week, they could easily bow out in a fortnight and then they've got a long hot summer before they can put it right next season. And that's what they'll have to do. And every club goes through that. Every club who doesn't make the 8 has already started that process of review and how could have we done things better and what do we need to do better for next year and how do we get stronger and how do we move up a couple of rungs on the ladder and try to improve into the future. You can't do it overnight, but you've got to keep moving forward. I don't take any joy in seeing a club like this at all. It's very, very hard when you're in a club that's under pressure like this.
It's been 22 years since Newcastle last won 7 games in a row. They won the comp last time they did that in 2001. They're unlikely to finish in the 4. They could finish 5th. They could bring an unbeaten run of 9 straight games into the finals, and they're doing it, they're all contributing, but clearly the star charge is Kalen Ponga, who has 12 try assists in his last 7 games. It'll be a sellout there on Sunday. You'll see it here on 9, Newcastle versus Cronulla. All the colour and excitement, and you're waking up in Newcastle at the moment, and they're all jumping out of bed, Gus. What have you seen in that Newcastle team that's been in contrast with the teams that have struggled earlier in the year and seasons prior?
Fitter, stronger, faster, more skillful, more knowledgeable. That's what they've worked on. They've worked really hard on it. I said on 100% footy the other night. People say, what changed 7 weeks ago? Nothing changed 7 weeks ago. You don't click your fingers and suddenly win 7 in a row. That doesn't happen. Someone doesn't come in with a magic answer. Well, if we do this and do that, we'll start winning. It doesn't work like that. That's 12 months, 18 months of hard work. That's 12 or 18 months of working, not getting the results you want, not having it displayed on the field, coming back and trying again, persevering, sticking by what you believe in, and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it till one day it just clicks. One day you get that result, and then all of a sudden you're breathing easier when you come to training. Suddenly the hard work becomes more enjoyable. Suddenly you enjoy the grind. Suddenly you enjoy the battle. You've got to love the battle. You've got to love the physicality of it. You've got to love the physicality of training. There are some teams that are training really hard. You'll hear coaches saying, we're training really hard, we're working really hard, but we're not winning. You'll have some players, internally, below the line thinkers and think, we're training too hard, I'm too tired, this is going to be too hard. Well, they're not the ones that are going to be there when you're winning. Trust me. All right. And what happens is you weed out or you create the attitude that you desire. And in Newcastle, which is a hard-working town, we all know that. What Newcastle is famous for, hard-working people, salt-of-the-earth people, good rugby league stock, working-class people who love their football team and they want their football team to be like that. What they've done is they've worked them hard, they've worked them long, and they've persevered, and they haven't backed off on that until such times as it produced the players that have made that their nature, and that's where Newcastle is now, and then they should be proud of it, and I'm sure they are. I'm sure their fans are proud of it.
Can I give you an insight into what it means? We were getting ready to call our Sunday game Canberra versus Canterbury, and the game before that, of course, was Newcastle Souths at the weekend. Mm-hmm. And the 8th Immortal, Andrew Johns, was pacing, screaming, like he was in the fetal position. Then he was cheering.
I've seen him here.
It is like a father watching their child play sport. Mm. Now, this is a bloke who's done everything in the game, who cares more about the outcome of a Newcastle game than anyone. Yep. That is what it means to the Newcastle people. Yeah. He's off his head.
Well, multiplying by about 200,000, and you've got
that's crazy.
Knights, and that's what it is. And what they've done is they've produced a football team that reflects what people loved about Newcastle, what Andrew Johns loved about Newcastle: fitter, stronger, faster, more skillful, more knowledgeable. Mm. They've ticked all their boxes, and it's coming together. Now it really helps when you've got a superstar. Kalen Ponga's a superstar, but you've also got all those really hard-working blokes that have come in there and they've built their game on work ethic and being part of a team and doing the team thing, and They're not letting each other down. They're too scared to let each other down. They won't let their club down. They won't let their fans down. That's where they are now. Sometimes it takes you ages, takes you years sometimes to create that, to get the people that will gel together and come in that time. And sometimes when you're working really hard off the field, you're working hard at training, and we've heard this over years, you'll hear rumours, players, the coach is training us too hard, or, it's just too this and too that. Well, if they back off that, to be popular with the players, if they back off that, to stop the people saying those sorts of things, then you're no chance. If you believe this is the way you need to train, if this is the way you need to be, the footballers you need to have, you need to back yourself, and hopefully one day it turns. And for the Newcastle Knights, it turned. It didn't suddenly turn 7 weeks ago. It turned 12 or 18 months ago when someone decided that's the journey we're on. That's what we're going to do, come hell or high water. And we don't care if people don't want to come along for the ride. We don't care and usually when that happens, people sack themselves. They don't, you don't need to sack them. They'll sack themselves.
You got an example of times you've been through that?
Yeah, plenty.
Have you?
Yeah.
So you're paying tribute to the coach here, is what you're doing.
Yeah.
He was gone. 6 weeks ago.
Obviously he wasn't. There was enough people believed in it.
Great effort.
He certainly believed in himself, which was important. And in the end, he gets buy-in. In the end, people do it. And what happens is you get that result. And he says, I told you. We won that because. This is why we did it, because. That's all that work we did in the off-season. That's all work we're doing every week. Blokes whinging about being too hard or getting too tired or getting too sore or whatever. This is why we're doing it. Look at how you're playing now. Look at what it is now. And that is grow with it. Now they want to train hard. Now they want to do that. So but that's the same with every successful situation. And clubs come in and out of that because they come in and out of that mentality with players. The ones that can do it sustainable over a long period of time, which again comes back to your Melbournes and your Roosters and and our Panthers and those sort of sides, the ones that are perennial premiership contenders, they have that. It's in the woodwork.
Yeah.
Some clubs had it and lost it. Some clubs are trying to get it back. You can't be impatient with it. You've got to trust it and believe in it. Going through a little bit of that ourselves. But we'll get there.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Credit to Adam O'Brien. Gee, it'd be great this Sunday. Be pumped.
Can't wait.
Won't be able to get in the joint. They'll sneak a few. You know what? It'll be sold out, but there'll be some sneaky fans. They'll find their way in. There'll be more people there than they're allowed to have. You what?
Newcastle?
Yeah.
What's the Newcastle fair go? They're not going to leave anyone out.
No. Open the gates. Open the gates.
I don't think anyone would mind.
Ring Singer. He'll pay. He loves them up there, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he follows. Who's he follow?
Yeah. Anyone who wants to get into Newcastle on the weekend will get in.
Get in. Yeah. Gus will pay. Let's ring Gus. Open the gate.
That happened in the grand final in 1981 when Newtown were going through the finals.
Yeah.
My dad was a policeman. He was at the police academy at Redfern.
Yeah.
He used to run the sergeant's courses in there, and he was an old Newtown policeman. He worked at Newtown Police Station, so he knew a lot of the Newtown history and all that. Anyway, when we went through the finals run in September, we played 4 weeks in a row at the cricket ground, and we all used to meet at the police academy at Redfern and get on buses to come to the game.
What, police buses?
No.
Oh.
Well, yeah, we had a bus, but family, friends, local Newtown identities.
Oh.
Mate of a mate, old mate, everyone that wanted to go to the football. We just kept bringing buses, and Dad knew the bloke on the gate at the cricket ground. I've never seen the members stand so packed.
That's gold.
There was standing room there. Whenever Newtown played, there was standing room there for only because all the blokes on the gate were Newtown supporters.
Stack the joint.
They just let everyone. There was no tickets or reserved tickets in those days. There was no. You didn't have to walk around with an ID on your pocket. So
you got it. Well, they'll all be Newcastle fans. The gate attendants. Just open the gates.
The Newtown bus arrived 4 times. The last time with the players.
Oh, that's funny.
Family and friends and old mates, everyone. Yeah.
Colourful Newtown identities.
Yeah, Newtown.
How many colourful? How colourful are we talking?
Yeah, very. The most colourful of all.
Oh, what was the pub you used to go to after training?
We used to go to the Henson Park Hotel.
That's the one.
Or the Vic Hotel.
Which is the one with all the heavies? Or both?
They've all got heavies. Back in the day.
Wasn't there some real heavies though?
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Very good.
Yeah, it was a wonderful life living in Sydney.
Ask Gus. I'm a relatively new NRL fan. Can you speak a bit about Daniel Anderson? Why is he so widely admired by former players and coaches? Asks Sean. Thank you for that, Sean.
Well, Daniel Anderson's really well known in rugby league circles because he's had a number of roles. You probably see him most as a head coach, but he's worked a lot in development and schools and other programs and development programs. He's given a lot of kids opportunities. He was a talent scout. He's dealt with player managers and parents, and he's brought kids through, and he's obviously helped a lot of people along the way, and he's just renowned as one of the really good blokes in rugby league. He's one of those rugby league blokes that everyone knew. He had a number of roles. That's why he kept getting jobs everywhere, because everyone needs a Daniel Anderson type in your club, and there are Daniel Anderson types in every club that have been a part of their clubs for a long time, and they never get the publicity. And as I say, people never talk about them for the credit, but they're the ones that actually, build the clubs the way they are and have the relationships and look after the players when they're young and build them through the system. And Daniel Anderson's one of them blokes, and a very talented football coach as well. No risk there, but he's had success here. And
he's been to 2 grand finals, Parramatta and the Warriors.
Yeah, and he and over in the UK, he won premierships with St Helens. They speak very fondly of him over there. So, all the outpouring of support and everything you hear for Daniel Anderson is all extremely genuine. Everyone, was shattered when he got his injury, and everyone will do what they can to support. And rugby league will look after him for the rest of his days, which it should, and it will.
Yep. Thanks for that, Sean, and we wish Daniel all the best. Of course, the round last weekend was dedicated to raising funds for Daniel, who suffered that awful spinal injury, and we think of him and his family and continue to send him the very best of wishes. Michael Mortimer, would you like to see more young players come from reserve grade to the Super League for 1 to 2 years to further their development? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, it is. Years ago we used to do that. Sometimes we'd send young fellas to England for a season because we thought it was better than playing over there than battling their head in reserve grade over here. I remember back in the 80s, Michael Hagan, Paul Langmack, a few of them went over to play in England. It was easier back then. These days there are restrictions on who can go over there and play professional sport as a job. You've got to have a working visa, right. And it's so there are. I'm not sure if it's the England government or it's the English Super League have certain criteria that you need to meet: number of games played, representative football, whether or not you've played in World Cups. It's different for an Australian passport than it is for Pacific Island passports. So players on Pacific Island passports can sometimes qualify easier than on the Australian passport. Mm-hmm. If you have, obviously, English heritage, parents or grandparents, there are exceptions, but generally, for the most player that wants to go and play in the UK, you've got to have played a certain amount of NRL football in your last 12 months. I think it's 25% of your games.
Okay, right.
At least 25% of your games have got to have been played in the NRL in the last 12 months, or you've got to have played a certain number of games. I don't know the exact number of it. I've never really sent a lot of players to England over the years, but I just do know some young players would benefit. I get English clubs ringing me persistently. I get messages from English clubs virtually daily, looking for a halfback, looking for a back row, looking for a front row, looking for a fullback, looking for an outside back. We need a goal kicker. They're always inquiring. And we've got plenty of kids that I think would benefit from some time over there in the UK, but they don't meet the qualifications. Then you would have to go and see whether or not they had a heritage exemption, or whether or not they had. Sometimes they might be travelling on a Pacific Island passport from another country, and I think it's a little bit easier. I'm not sure why the restriction is so stringent for Australian passports. I'll stand corrected on that. I don't actually research it a lot because I don't send a lot of players there. But, I signed to go to England back in the 80s.
Did you?
Yeah.
Who were you going to play with?
I was going to play with York.
Oh.
I was coached by Phil Lowe. So we won the premiership at Bulldogs 84-85. And then I was going to go and play. I signed to go and play with York, which would have been the off-season that year.
Yes.
Because our seasons didn't run concurrently. So I had to go over there for the English winter and play that off-season. And then decide when I came back to Australia if I was going to play for an Australian club. York, which was, I believe, is a beautiful town. I've never been there.
Geez, you've had some fun over there.
Long time ago. Phil Lowe was the coach, the fellow who came out from Manly, English International. The deal was actually organised by Ron Willey. Ron Willey, I think, was coaching Manly at the time.
Right.
I remember going to Ron Willey's place at North Sydney to meet Phil Lowe, and at the end of the year we'll go and spend the off season in England. And then I got a little bit of a change in my work situation, a little bit of a change in my personal life, and I got an offer to go to South Sydney with George Piggins, and that's what I chose to do. So I didn't go to England, but the qualifications back in those days, you just went. If you wanted to go and play footy in England, you just went and played footy. Now, because it's a full-time profession and it's a job, I think that there are workplace visa restrictions and different things. I'm sure it's probably a government thing.
Yeah.
And they've tried to work.
Well, I know in county cricket,
yeah,
I think I'm fairly sure you need to have played international cricket.
Yeah, but over the years, I've had, and that's why I've always fancied the loan system. Now, not the loan. I've often had, particularly in development, when your club gets strong, and it happened at the Roosters and it happened at the Panthers. When your club gets strong, I got blokes playing reserve grade who are not going to get any better by playing reserve grade. They need to be playing NRL, but your team's going too good. No one's getting injured. They can't make the side because we've got talented players in the side. They're not going to get any better playing reserve grade full. And I've seen it. I've seen players play reserve grade for too long before they get their real opportunity in the NRL, which is why players change clubs a lot these days, because they're not getting their pathways blocked at one club. So they'll go from the better club down to a lesser club because they can get more time. And then
look at Connor Tracy this year.
They've got to develop. Connor's a good example, but they've got to develop, and you're going to get more time with the lower placed teams who are looking for players. So, but on a number of occasions, I've had players where I would have loved to have sent them to England for 12 months rather than lose them to another club.
Yes.
Right, because or I would have liked the ability to loan them to another club. So even though they were on contract to us, to say, look, you can go and play with that team, for the next 8 to 10 weeks, right, and they can play you in the NRL, right. And I think that'll be good for you, and it'll be good for them because it helps them out a little bit, and then I would like the right to bring him back to our club, and I've tried to impose that for 20 years. I wanted the loan system in the game to help develop players quicker, to help fast-track them a little bit, because there gets to a point where, and there is still, right now, there is a massive difference between reserve grade and first grade. Back years and years ago, reserve grade coach was an extremely strong competition. You were surviving there. You were going to be an NRL player. Now that's not the guarantee. You need to be pressure tested up top. New South Wales Cup and second tier football is still an important part of the development process, but some players just spend too long there and don't get their opportunity, which is why they'll leave a strong club and go to a lesser club. And if they go to the wrong club at the wrong time and it doesn't work out, or that club's struggling and getting beaten everywhere, well, then they're looking for different answers. You're not the one that's going to solve their problem. You've got to try and persevere with the good club and make it there. If you can make it there, you'll make it anywhere. That's what the song says, doesn't it?
It's exactly what he wrote it about.
If I can make it
Rugby
here,
league.
If I can make it here, I'll make it anywhere.
He was talking about reserve grade and NRL.
Exactly. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But I would love the opportunity to send young people to England for a season, absolutely, because it's good. It would be good development for them, as long as you could get them back. Problem is, if they go over there and they go good, they don't like them coming back.
You been to New York?
No.
Haven't you?
No.
I'm starting to think of, maybe this happens at the end of the season, I'm starting to think about holiday destinations. Thinking about, I've never been to the States, believe it or not. I'm thinking about maybe going to the States.
I've been to the States a number of times.
Yeah.
Mostly
in New York.
Mostly on football trips and work trips, and I've taken my family to. We've done the Disneyland thing.
Oh, you mentioned Las Vegas.
The Las Vegas thing. I had a great trip there once where we went to San Francisco and drove up around Lake Tahoe, come back through Virginia City, and saw a bit of the outback but never saw enough. I went to New Orleans on a football trip with the Bulldogs.
That'd be fun.
One of the greatest football trips you'll ever see. The World's Fair was there all the time, 1984.
What's the World's Fair?
Well, it's the World's Fair. It's a big event every 4 years around the world. They have it in a different city, and this year they had it in New Orleans. Oh. And we were actually on holidays in New Orleans at the time of the World's Fair.
What happens at the World's Fair?
What happens there stays in.
Particularly with the Bulldogs in town.
We can't be talking about New Orleans right now. New Orleans. Yeah, we went to.
What happens when a rugby league team lands in New Orleans for their end-of-season trip?
We had to ban end-of-season trips once mobile phones come on and scrutiny started to get a little bit tight. You don't see people going on end-of-season trips anymore. End-of-season trips used to be the Gold Coast. Like everyone would go to the Gold Coast, and then it was Bali or something like that, and then Hawaii, and then we won the Premiership in '84, and we ventured over to the mainland. We went to LA, we went to New Orleans, and then we come back to Hawaii.
Be a waste of time going that far because you just pissed the whole time, mate.
We went through New Zealand. A week after the grand final, we went and played a combined Auckland team for $20,000, winner take all.
Oh.
And then we used that money to go over to the trip away.
Oh, that was nicely done.
Yeah, trips away in those days that's why you played. They're the greatest memories. They're the greatest memories you could possibly have. Were your trips away, and because they were holidays. We were working and playing football at the same time. Trips away were monumental. Monumental.
Gus, the Warriors are on the cusp of playing a home final this season. Hopefully they will. Maybe not week 1.
Yep.
But the last time they had a home final was when?
Okay. So they went to the grand final in 2010 with Ivan Cleary. I'm trying to work out whether or not they finished top 4, whether they had a home final that year.
Oh, yes, I remember.
I do know they had a home final when Brad Fittler was coaching the Roosters, which was around about 2007 or 8.
Oh, you've got it, 2008.
Yeah.
Now, if my memory serves, they were 8th and they beat Melbourne in the first week of the finals at
Olympic
Park.
Yeah.
And then they went back to New Zealand to host the final, which they subsequently won 30-13.
Yeah.
First half field goal.
Yeah.
So that kind of triggered the reshaping of the final system because 8th beat first, then went and got a home final.
Yeah. I remember that day. I was commentating that day in Melbourne when they beat them, 8th versus 1st. And was that the one Ivan was coaching?
I think so. And Michael Witt scored.
Yeah, Ivan was coaching them, and he'd taken a bloke from the Roosters who I'd given a job 2 years ago, Craig Walker. And Craig Walker still works for the Roosters. Great bloke, Craig. And Craig was his grey shirt. Remember the fellas used to run on with a water bottle and all that sort of thing? And we went down to do the halftime talk on the halftime, and I think it was me and Matty Johns or Ian Fatty or someone down on the halfway line. And the scores were close at halftime. And Craig come up, and we were virtually on air. And Craig said, "Gussie, do you think we can win?" I said, "Of course you can." He said, "Beautiful." And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that moment. It was so Craig Walker. He said, "Gussie, do you think we can win?" I said, "Yeah."
They had a good record down in Melbourne for a while, them Warriors.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do, but they did around then. Yeah. They used to trouble them. They were one of the only teams that could give them a bit of bother.
Yeah, they trouble everyone now.
Oh, yeah.
They're a good side now.
All right. NRLW, which continues here on 9, it's just been a runaway success. Game after game after game. The Dragons, how about that? Last minute try to beat the Tigers. I was having a little snooze on Saturday afternoon. I was watching the first part of that game and I fell asleep, as I like to do on the couch. Then I woke up and the Dragons had scored. It was 16-6 and the Dragons beat them on the bell. Well done to Jamie Soward's ladies. Roosters chugging along. What about Jesse Southwell? Mini Joey.
Terrific, isn't it? There was some great footy played.
How many of our women's rugby league players would have kicked that goal 3 years ago? 10 metres in from the sideline.
Yeah,
not many.
Would have been a challenge for them, but the kicking has improved remarkably. And the goal kickers, the girl nailed one from the sideline the other day.
Yeah.
And it was still rising when it got to the post. I mean, they've obviously worked really hard on their technique, and of course they were playing with men's footballs too.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not easy for them, but they're doing it really well. Even field goals. We've had some field goals this year, which was a skill that had to be learned for them. It wasn't natural for them to begin with. Now it is.
Yeah, it's great stuff. So let's run through round 6. Give a tip where you feel comfortable. Saturday, 11:05 a.m. Just your matinee of women's rugby league here on 9. Para Cowboys, that's at Netstrata Jubilee. Double header for us coming from Cogra.
Yep, Cowboys.
Dragons Titans, Red V Jubilee.
Good game. Red V Jubilee, Dragon
to win over the Titans.
Yep.
Roosters Tigers, good game. Allianz. Tigers are a good side despite losing last week.
They are a good side, but they'll be up against the best side. Rooster wins that one.
All right. Another good game. Broncos, Raiders, totally Workwest Stadium, Brisbane.
Yeah, they can pull out a really big game, Raiders. They're running third. Broncos are running sixth, but I think the Broncos are the better team. I'll go with Bronco.
Okay, and seriously, the Knights are not going to lose to the Sharks at a full. But do you know what? They're that passionate. It'll be a full house for the women's game.
Yeah, it's a hard trip for the Sharks girls, but they had a big win last week. You know, the Sharks girls had to go to Townsville last week, right? And they went to Townsville to play against the Cowboys. They were underdogs. They won 40 to something. They put in a good performance.
Yep.
But no one's booked their
I did read that.
the travel to come home. So half of them had to stay in Townsville.
Yeah.
A few of them had to get flights on a different time leg on their own, and half the squad had to go to Melbourne on the Saturday night to get an early flight back to Sydney the next day. So you can imagine the clothes they've packed to go to Townsville compared to what they walked out to. So they didn't get to Melbourne until nearly midnight on the Saturday night.
You've been sucked into the story.
It's been a long
You know,
day.
this was a deliberate thing, wasn't it? So they could go to the Mad Cow.
No. Well, the ones that went to Melbourne didn't go to the Mad Cow.
they pulled a Swifty.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Who forgot to book their flight?
I don't know, but they should have just booked a charter and built it up to the NRL
That's right.
to get the girls home. You can't be doing that.
No.
That's a misstep there.
All right. Round 26. We're normally into finals time.
If you want to run a national competition, you've got to be able to get them around properly.
Well, they've got to show them enough respect to make sure the women are catered for the same as the men.
100%.
Thanks to our mates at Bluebet. What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, gamblinghelponline.org.au. Thursday night footy, Battle of the West. Panther versus Eel. It's Parramatta's last game of the year. And normally there is very little between these teams. Well, on the Bluebet market, the Panthers are $1.08 and Parramatta are $8 for Thursday night footy.
The tips will be very quick this week. Panther wins.
Panther to win. They were very disappointed. They started well, Parramatta, last week, which they have in the last couple of weeks, but they dropped off a cliff, didn't they? Warriors versus Dragons at Daniel Anderson Stadium, Go Media Stadium, as it's otherwise known. Warriors $1.10, Dragons at $6.50. The little bit of news that might be of interest is Tamare Martin is on the extended bench for the Warriors after breaking his leg earlier in the year.
Yeah, wonderful. Warrior wins.
Okay. Friday, Suncorp. Friday night footy, kick-off round about 8 o'clock. Battle of Queensland, Dolphins 3.20. Cowboys $1.35 coming off the bye, and Jeremiah Nene isn't there because of that shoulder, which has flared up again. So Finay Fuiaki comes to the bench, and the Hammers back at fullback for the Dolphins. Conley Lemuelu and Kenny Bromwich are both back.
Yep. Cowboy, danger game, but Cowboy.
Okay. Storm Tiger, Amy Park, 3 o'clock Saturday.
Storm Titan.
Storm Titan, my apologies.
Yep. Storm.
Kieran Foran's back, but they've lost a few key players there. Now 5:30 at Allianz, Rooster versus Tiger. Joey Manu's at fullback for James Tedesco, but Sam Walker wears the 7.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see Sam, won't it? Welcome back into the NRL, and that's good for the Rooster, and the Rooster will be winning.
Oh, here's a big game. Saturday night footy, which you can see here on 9. Raiders 3.20, Broncos $1.35. No Adam Reynolds. Raiders have been gibbering their way through. No Jack Whiten again, who has been left out. Although he is in jumper 20, so maybe he'll come in.
Bronco, comfortably.
They could be in trouble, Canberra. They play last game of the regular season, Cronulla in Cronulla.
Yeah.
Oh. If they lose this, it could be drama. Bulldogs $2.40, Manly $1.57, and our big game, McDonald Jones Stadium, Newcastle, Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock kickoff. Newcastle $1.67, Sharks $2.20. Not just the occasion, but the football will be spectacular.
Absolutely spectacular. What a great game this is. And I think these two teams, when you look at the way they play and the fact that they're both in form, I think the two styles of these teams will lead itself to a brilliant game of rugby league. Don't miss this game Sunday. If you're a rugby league fan, don't miss this game. It'll be physical, but it'll be really skillful. It'll be open. It'll be fast. And honestly, either side can win. I'm going to go with the Knights, who are the home team, and in front of that crowd, Old Boys Day. You know, there's a lot of other emotional things about it, and I think they're really on a roll at the moment. I think they can keep the winning going, but Sharks, they've turned it around the last 3 weeks, and They're to be respected. They really are to be respected. But I'm tipping the home side Knight on Sunday. I'm actually going up to call that one.
Well, you'll be calling it with me. I'm looking forward to it. And they turned that. The feature in that win last week for me was the amount of try-saving efforts that Newcastle produced.
Yeah.
They kept turning up.
Well, saving them is better than scoring them. It's an old saying.
Yeah.
Saving tries is better than scoring tries.
So whip through them again.
So we go back to the start.
It's favourite-a-thon.
Yeah. Panther, Warrior, Cowboy, Storm, Rooster, Bronco, and Knight.
And Bulldog. Thanks, Gus.
Thanks, mate.
That's Six Tackles with Gus for this week. We'll be back next week. Make sure you join us across the weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. All the footy covered here on Nine's Wide World of Sports.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.